Hey, Energizer. Welcome to the Jonesin 4 show, the show that's here to help you live your life to the max. And boy, oh boy, you are in for a real treat today because we have an amazing guest joining us to help you live your life to the max. And, we've talked about many things. We talked about finances, we talked about credit, we talked about health, nutrition, working out, shoes, like everything under the sun to help you. And we've talked about mindset before, but we are going to dive deep into how you look at the world, how you view yourself, how you view life, and really to help you be at your best so that you can embrace life, live your life to the max. And our guest today, I'm so honored to have him joining us. I met him a couple months ago at a men's retreat that I was at, and we connected instantly. Like, we felt each other's energy, and we're like, oh my God, I have to meet this guy. And we chatted there multiple times over that weekend, not just speaking at the event, but with each other and pouring life into each other. And we were able to connect, to record this, to be here for all of you, to help you learn from his amazing wisdom. So without any further ado, let me welcome Brian Bogert. Thank you for being here on the Jonesin 4 show.
Well, thank you. What a freestyle introduction I just got. I think I'm gonna just start paying you to be my hype man and travel around with me. We'll make you the Prince of Positivity, and we'll travel together, and
Yes.
we'll break the circuits of the world with the overload of energy from both of us. So, man, it's truly my pleasure to be here with you. So thank you.
Of course, brother. We were so happy. The Prince of Positivity, the Prince of Hype, we combine. Imagine we go on tour, right? I mean, people won't know what to do. Lights are going to be bursting just from our energy alone. It's going to be fireworks. That's what we bring. We bring fireworks there.
That's
oh
right.
My gosh. And I love doing these intros because it's all freestyle, right? I don't really plan much of anything. It's like, okay, we're just going to go around this pathway.
Beautiful, man.
Right. And so that's how we do our episodes. And for those energizers listening right now, that's how we do our episodes. It's all freestyle, right? It's like we're sitting down, having a coffee, just enjoying life, or having a beer, right? Whatever works for you. And we're just chatting. So with that, Brian, our energizers, we're all about living lives to the max. I said that earlier. So let me ask you this question right off the bat. I usually wait to the end, but we're just going to start at the end and then work our way somewhere. Who knows where? What suggestion do you have to help people live their lives to the max?
So it's the simple one, but that's also extremely complicated.
Those are sometimes the best, right? The simple but complicated.
Yeah. To live your life to the best, you have to know exactly who you are, who you're doing this for, who you plan to impact, and who you want to do this with. If you are clear on the who, then all the what's in your world will be a manifestation of who you are. But if you chase the what's, which is what we typically are conditioned, what house, what car, what amount of money, what amount of success, it's almost guaranteed that you're going to lose who you are. The path to joy, freedom, and fulfillment, living your life to the max, or as we like to call it, living a no limits life, is really through understanding who you are.
Holy crap, right? I mean, we just everything, so much of the recordings that I talk about, other guests talk about, are about those what's, right? And how to not have those what's, to go back to it. But you're just like, no, let's go and discover the who, because once you have that, everything else lines up, right? Let's not dance around the issue. Let's not play around. Let's just get to the meat of it. You need to discover you. But it's so hard to know who we are, right? That, as you said, it's simple, but it's hard. How do we know who we are? Because I'm influenced by, I don't know, what my parents raised me as, the belief systems they had. But now, not only that, like, what television tells me I should do, what it's like to be a man or to be a woman or whatever. Like, who am I? How do I even know? I mean, how many times have countless times I sit around like, who am I? And I really can't answer that. I can imagine our energizers feel the same way. How do we know who we are? How can we discover this?
Yeah, so I think it's a phenomenal question. And, you even throughout it used a word that I'm going to draw attention to here in a second, which is part of the reason that so many of us lose who we are. And by the way, I lost who I was, which is part of the reason that I'm on this huge mission. The reality of it is we are born as our brightest, most authentic, burning, bright light that we will ever be. Think about it. Anybody who's got kids or has been around kids, think about the rawness that exists, right? a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, right? Anything up until 6 or 7 years old in those first 7 years of life, like there's just a rawness that happens. And then what happens after that? We start getting parents, teachers, employers, coaches, family members start saying all the shoulds around that person. Okay. So should is a shame-based word because it implies that whatever you're doing or whoever you are isn't good enough. So it immediately, from the time we are little, is embedding this element of shaming, suggesting that who we are is not good enough and who we are is not worthy enough of what the world is going to accept. Because what is the narrative? The narrative is you should do this, you shouldn't do that. You should be this, you shouldn't be that. You should chase this amount of money, shouldn't chase that amount of money. You should have this kind of house, this kind of car, this kind of spouse. You shouldn't have any of these.
Right.
We literally start going down this box and this channel that the world is defining for us to tell us who we are, because if we fit inside this box of what they've defined for us, then we're going to be safe. We're going to be approved. We're going to be worthy. But what's really happening is the only way to fit inside that box is we start putting layers of who the world told us who to be on top of who we really are, until who we really are is lost in just a glimmer of the light we once were.
Wow.
And so if we can recognize that this is a pattern, how do we get back to center? How do we get back to that core authentic? It's a process of actually shedding those layers. Right. Now, what does that mean, right? That means a whole variety of different things. You know, we've got a couple of core philosophies. One of them is to embrace pain to avoid suffering. And I believe this is where we also gain freedom, right? So some of the layers are truly some of the emotional damage, some of the trauma, some of the belief systems, some of the ways that we've processed information. And it's only possible for ourselves to see ourselves clearly when we can actually start to embrace the pains required to get back to who we already are and who we want to become. And so what does that look like? Most people believe that they are stuck because of a combination of the wrong strategy and tactics in their life. If I just chase this, then I'll be successful. If I buy that 7-step system for success, which we need no more of, by the way, then I'm just going to make it. I'll find who I am. I'll find joy, freedom, and fulfillment. But inevitably, it's always an empty cycle because we haven't actually done the work that's necessary to feel in order to heal and actually do the work that we need to require to actually get back to who we are. And so I'm going to start with one really tactical tip. Create 2 lists. On this one list, I want you to put all the people, sources of information, environments, things that you consume that make you feeling energized, right? We're talking to a group of energizers. You know what that feels like, right? That makes you feel alive. That you spend 8 hours doing something and it makes you feel like you've only spent 1 because you're in flow state and you're loving it. You can't wait to get back to what you're doing. That person, that place, that environment, whatever it is, you're feeding off of it. It's driving you. Okay. We all know what that feels like. Make the list of all the things in your life that align that way. Now on this counter list, I want you to make a list of all the people, sources of information, places, environments, all the same things that actually do the inverse for you, that leave you feeling depleted, defeated, unworthy, that make you feel like you're banging your head against the wall for 8 hours and you can't wait to clock out of wherever you are. Right. That makes you feel like you don't know if you can continue to do this day in and day out. And it's also the thing that you tend numbing from. We all have people, places, sources of information that drive this, yet we don't take the action to eliminate things from this other negative list and drive ourselves more towards the things that make us feel more alive. Guess what? The reason they make you feel more alive is they're probably more in alignment with who you are at the core. So if you can eliminate all the things on the other side that are actually detracting from who you are, putting more layers on top of you that you continue to numb around, and you spend more time on this list that's aligned with who you are, you live a lot more free and fulfilled life.
Holy crap. I mean, that's an amazing tip right there to change everything, right? You spend less time on the people who are crap and situations that drain us and more on the ones that energize us. But let's be honest, some people on that list of people who drain us or jobs, well, we have to have a job, right? We have to do there. And so how do we do that? Or how do we deal with the people who are in our family per se that we can't shed? Now, I'm all for being like, okay, I need to distance myself from those friends, the people in our lives, right, who drain us. And I have, right? I've done it. I've even done it with family members, and it's been incredibly freeing. Let me just say that up front, incredibly freeing. But it was a very, very tough choice, right? And you have to do what's best for you. With that, how do we make those choices, or how do we set ourselves up for success? Because, okay, like, is it just, okay, I'm just going to quit that job, or am I going to find something else? I guess I'm asking more of a tactical question for this, or answer. but I'm not sure we need that because we already have so many technical answers. But I'm going to toss the ball in your court and see where you dribble it around.
Yeah. So the unavoidable precursor to change is acceptance. So until we accept the current state of things, we cannot alter them. We cannot learn. We cannot grow. We cannot move forward. Right. And so if you're stuck in a job that drains you and you hate it and you convince yourself that I need this job, well, guess what? Every day that passes is one day that you are further away from living your dream job, from actually existing in that environment. Right. For every time that we are going to a family situation that we know is going to cause us stress and strain, and we internalize that energy and then we carry it with us until we project it into whatever environment we go into next and create damage out of the result of it. Right. All of these decisions start to create suffering in our lives. One of the things we talk about, again, is embracing pain to avoid suffering. Right. It's not for the sake of just putting ourselves into unnecessary pain, but it's to recognize that suffering creeps up on us sometimes until its effects are irreversible. And so we have to sometimes actually make some change that might be painful as a result of it. So a couple of tactical approaches. And now that I gave kind of the concept behind it, okay? Here's the reality. There are going to be some people that you feel like you cannot remove from your life. So when I say remove people from that list, it's not to suggest that everybody can be removed or can easily be removed.
Right.
But what we can do, and this goes to what you and I talked about before, is raise our level of awareness so that we can be more intentional with how we engage with those relationships. So part of what that is to help start breaking the patterns in that relationship in a way that is creating negativity, stress, strain in your life, right? So let's just assume it's a mother, right? Mm-hmm. And your mom maybe shames you every single time you're successful, shames you every time you don't do things the way that have always been done and that she believes they need to be done, right? And you're absorbing all these things. Well, you get to this place where like you desire this connection with your mom, but you also want to avoid it simultaneously. Because we've never actually had the difficult conversation, or maybe we've attempted to actually set that appropriate emotional boundary around the way that these things, we experience them, and that we no longer desire to experience the relationship in that way. Mm-hmm. And so part of it's around setting some emotional boundaries. Maybe sometimes it's setting specific timelines that you're going to be interacting in those environments. It's around allowing yourself to understand and anticipate going into them so you can be intentional. The other piece is, what are we doing to release the energy we absorb when we're in that environment? If I know that I'm going to go to a family environment and I'm going to leave feeling worse about myself, well, then I can do one of two things. I can go in and allow that energy to just flow right through me and know that I don't have to allow it to stick. Or if I'm aware enough to recognize that I actually leave that house feeling a little defeated, a little unworthy, and a little depleted, well, then what do I do to actually refill my sources and release that energy before, again, I transfer it and carry or create more damage in my life? And so part of it's just around the intentionality and how you set up what those relationships look like, and how are you focusing on what you need either before, intermittently, or after those interactions that might cause you to feel that way. Because it's in those moments that we can start to create new patterns. With a job, I'm going to tell you this, and I'm going to tell you this as plain and simple as it is. And it's not a fair thing to say, but it's also the truth. Okay? I recognize why people need a job. But if you've convinced yourself that you need a job that's also killing you, then you're getting a job that's actually taking away from the life that you actually believe you need that job to live.
Like, I need this and I'm killing myself with it.
And so, by the way, pardon my language, but what is the fucking point? And so if I'm going to take a step back on this, it's going to say, if you know that you're miserable going into that job, it's you and only you that can change that. Either you change the dynamic of the way that you interact with that job in a way that you can find a way that it is fulfilling for you, or you have to take the action necessary to expose yourself and take the risk to put yourself out there and find another one. The problem is that most people don't actually want to embrace the pains necessary to avoid suffering. And this is one of those times where it's like, do I want to put in the work to polish up my resume? Do I want to put in the work to find the right people that are hiring? Do I want to put in the work to do these things? This isn't one of those just work harder and you'll get it narratives. That's not it at all.
Right.
But if you're miserable where you are, it's going to take more energy from you to remain there than it will for you to just take the chance to put yourself in a different position.
And it's amazing how energizing that can be, right? Taking that chance, chasing that passion, like, okay, I need to get out of here. Even if it's, okay, I polished up my resume or I applied for this job, right? And yes, it takes energy and work, but it's also energizing because you're getting yourself out of that tough time, setting boundaries around those people. And I love the idea of going in with that intention of, okay, I'm just going to let this wash through me, and they're allowed to think or say whatever they want, but I don't need to let it stick. Or knowing that even if I do that, there might be some residue left, right? And stick with, and how am I going to fulfill myself or fill myself back up, and then have those strategies in place beforehand. I mean,
and the reality of it is what we know is that experts in habit formation say that all new things have an upfront energy tax. Okay. So if we're talking energy, we have an upfront energy tax. So it's a cost, right?
Right.
But even that sets us up for failure and avoidance, because we're assuming that the cost and an expense. So I want all of us to stop looking at new things as something that's going to take away. Instead, let's flip it on its head and look at it as an investment in your future self. Investments deliver returns. Expense is a lost cost. And so if we can just recognize that the effort and energy that I'm going to expend in this new direction to put myself in a better position to be more in alignment with who I am, so I can truly live a no limits life to the max, then what do I have to do to recognize that what I do today is truly an investment in my future? And if I make no investment, I make no return. So if I stay in that job where I'm miserable, guess what? I'm making no changes, but I'm paying to be there.
It's an expense. It's not that.
It's an expense, but a deeper one than what I'm asking you to take, which is actually one that will pay returns long term.
Holy crap, man. Like that's just mind blowing right there. Like we could have ended this 10 minutes ago or whatever and be like, I'm filled, right? And that's just taken to a whole new level, just a new way to look at it. And I never thought about, I've thought about energy tax before, I've heard it and then discussed it at points, but not quite to that degree. And then with the whole investing in ourselves, that's a huge thing, right? We think about investing in ourselves, right? People are listening to this podcast, right? You're investing in yourself, good by doing it. But there's other things that you can be investing in yourself that you're letting be this expense that's deeper and bigger and more expensive than what that change is going to be. That's actually then an investment into yourself, which is huge.
That's right. Again, it's pain versus suffering.
Right. It seems like it's boiling down to all pain versus suffering, right? You have to face that pain.
In our conversation today, it does seem to tie back to that, doesn't it? Yeah.
Sure does. I'm not sure everything does, but maybe. But for our conversation today, definitely.
Yeah, I actually do believe that in concept, this concept applies to most things in our life. I'll give a couple quick examples, right? We can embrace the pain of hitting the gym for 30 minutes a day to avoid the suffering of aches and pains of a sedentary lifestyle. Right. We can embrace the pain of a difficult conversation with a loved one or spouse to avoid the suffering of being stuck in a loveless marriage that'll end in divorce, or being stuck in a marriage when we actually desire divorce, right? We can embrace the pain of the fit our kids are sure to throw by having them put down their mobile devices at the dinner table, to avoid the suffering of years of lost meaningful connection and conversation that we'll never get back. As business owners, we can embrace the pain of firing our top salesperson who's contributing the most to top line growth, to avoid the suffering of stagnant growth and losing all our other top talent because they were the greatest cancer in our culture. Right? This list goes on. And so the reality of it is it's always about what you and I even talked about earlier. It's like, what is the choice that we're going to make anytime in our lives? And I just genuinely believe that this concept, even though I didn't break it down in full the way that we typically would, the reality of it is I believe that we all must choose our pain, or our suffering will choose us. I'd rather be the one to have influence and control over what that looks like.
Having control, right? Take control of the controllables. You have control over which pain you want to take on, right? The pain, and I see this post all the time, especially with fitness, right? And that was a great example. All of them were, but like, the pain of choosing to go to the gym, or the pain of the sedentary lifestyle, right? The pain of being overweight or unhealthy, whatever, not able to chase your passions or whatever it is. You get to choose that pain. And what I'm hearing is 3 A's, right? And they kind of go in this process, right? Awareness. Because first of all, you need awareness, right? If you're not aware of it, you can't change it. You can't do anything about it. So you have to be aware. So raising your awareness to all the things, thoughts, just raising your awareness in all levels. Then 2, oh my God, how did I forget the second one? Awareness. Oh my goodness, I hate when that happens.
Action's got to be in there, right?
Whew, brain fart. Acceptance.
Acceptance. Yes.
Awareness. And then you have to accept that this is what you're seeing and this is what it is, right? So you're aware of it. I'm accepting this is where it's at, right? That this is where it's at currently. Doesn't mean it's always going to stay there, but you're accepting it. And then if you want to change it, or sometimes even keep it, the 3rd A is action. You have to take action on it, right? So you have your awareness, acceptance, and then your action. And that action is where that expense comes in, or that investment comes in that we talked about. That's huge. And so many of us want to go after one or the other without the other pieces of components to it.
1,000% with everything you just said. The one thing I'd like to give some clarification on, because you used the reference and analogy to it, like the choose your pain now or pain later, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to give some clarification as to why I say pain versus suffering.
I would love it.
Because I think it's really important for us to recognize that not all pain is created equal, but it's also like different, and pain is independent of the person experiencing it. So to draw any conclusive determinations around pain becomes near impossible with one thing. It's a universal human experience. The world tells us to reduce, eliminate, or avoid pain, right? And I'm telling you the world is wrong. But even the way that we see most of these narratives, it's around like choose your pain now or you have pain later. But that's under the realm of the definition of pain being changed with the adjectives that we put in front of the word, right? So pain's defined as short-term, intermittent, a direct cause from something, and alleviated once that direct cause is removed. And then we as human beings screwed up, again, with words like acute and chronic.
Right.
Now, acute maintains the definition, but chronic inherently changes it, right? Because it implies that it's no longer short-term, and it persists after that direct cause is removed. So let's stop calling that pain or chronic pain and call it what it really is, suffering. Because the reality of it is anything that is going to alleviate, again, if I don't work out for 30 minutes a day and all of a sudden I've got aches and pains from a sedentary lifestyle, by the time I'm 60 years old, if I've lived an entire life like that, it's pretty damn hard to remove that. It's not just pain at that point to get my health back. It is suffering every single minute. And so we need to really understand the difference between pain and suffering in terms of extremity and how we experience it. Because again, it also happens through the consistency and length of time with which that pain will exist in our life, or the amount we have to exert to remove that suffering from our lives.
Thank you for raising my awareness to the difference between the two, right? The difference between pain and suffering. And I love that definition of the two. And I'm 100% behind you with the definition of it and how to use it. I'm going to change my verbiage going forward and how we do that, because it's, when you say it, I went, oh, wow, that's a suffering. Like, oh man, that's a strong term all of a sudden, right? Like pain and like, okay, short term, like, yeah, I hear pain. But suffering, like, oh man, that cuts deeper just hearing those words, right? But it does, and it should. I mean, let's be honest, right? Because it's a long-term thing. It's something that digs deeper, right? It's like a river. Doesn't cut the riverbed overnight, right? Through the short term. It's that long-term thing that aches and pains. Like you said, all of a sudden you're 60 and you've been living that sedentary lifestyle. It's sure is a heck of a lot harder to get healthy and fit. Can you do it to a degree? Yeah, but it's a heck of a lot harder and you're paying the price all that time.
And sometimes, again, the effects are irreversible. I mean, truly, that's the thing about suffering and the choices that we make real time every single day is we forget the fact that sometimes suffering creeps up on us until we don't even know it's there, until all of a sudden we feel it one day and it's like, oh, I can't pull this back anymore.
Hey, are you ready to crush it, to go after your dreams and goals and live your life to the max? Well, of course you are. That's why you're here listening or watching to the Jonesin 4 show, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much. But sometimes we still get stuck, right? These podcasts, this show is great, but that's not everything sometimes. Sometimes we need a little more. And you know what? I get that. What helps me and what has helped me and continues is a community. It's surrounding myself with people who are amazing, who are like-minded, like me, going after goals, achieving big things, and pushing themselves and others to be their best. Wouldn't it feel amazing to be surrounded by a community like that? To be surrounded by people who are like you, who have big goals and dreams, and they're going for them. Not only are they going for their goals, they're helping and encouraging you to go after yours. Well, if that sounds interesting, if that sounds fun, if that sounds like a community you would love to be part of, well then come check out Spencer's Energy Hub. That's right, I have our membership community, well, I should say we have a membership community that's here for you. I say we because we are the energizers, just like you. We energize each other to be our best. We have monthly rock star interviews, right, where we interview masters in their field. We have weekly trainings. We meditate every week as a community, and you can hop in and join us. You get special access to me along with an incredible community of people. So if you are ready to level up, if you are ready to be a rock star and crush your goals while being surrounded by an incredible and amazing community, check out Spencer's Energy Hub. All you have to do is go to spencersenergyhub.com and check it out. Or if you want, just head over to my website, www.spencermjones.com, and check out the hub. We would love to have you inside. All right, back to your show. Right. So if we're in pain short term, or we notice our suffering, right? We notice that this longer term and like, oh man, this is driving me nuts. I'm suffering here. I need to get out of it. You know, the thought or analogy that comes to my mind is once the pain is great enough, once that suffering is great enough to change the verbiage on it, then we'll finally change. Then we'll take that action. So my question to you is that still the case with suffering, or is it just the awareness of going, I see that this is happening, I desire to have that change? And it's not necessarily that it's all of a sudden too great, or maybe there's just another way to view it. I'm not even sure. What are your thoughts?
Hey, Spence, you're one of our internets went out and you froze during that whole question. So I didn't hear anything you said. And so it may have captured on the recording, but we could also just start that question over. It seems like we're flowing now, but I wanted to make sure that before I even attempted to answer, you were aware of that. I missed almost the whole question.
No worries. Thank you for being open and honest. We're keeping this raw and real. Sure, we could edit this out, but no, this is life, right? This happens.
I'm good for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Why not? Right. Okay. So see if I can remember the question. So the saying that comes to my mind when we think about pain and changing it is, well, once the pain gets great enough, or changing the verbiage, once the suffering gets great enough, then we'll finally be motivated enough to change, right? To take that action, right? Because, okay, I'm suffering and I need to do that. Was that still the case if, thinking about it, like, okay, if suffering is too much, now I'm finally going to take action. I'll deal with it. I'll put up with it until all of a sudden it's too much. Or is there another way we can look at it, view it so we're not suffering as long and we're being at our best,
and we can be proactive to avoid it more often than not. So I would tell you that there is a way. And you're right. There are going to be moments where we hit that wall and there is no other choice than to make change. Right. My goal is to help people avoid ever having to hit that place. I've been there, unfortunately, more times than I care to choose or that I care to admit. And it hurts bad. Right. And I've paid for it. So I think that the first piece is that we have to actually acknowledge the suffering that we wish to avoid proactively. You see, most people go through this like vision planning and goal setting. And first of all, I think most people do that incorrectly because they protect themselves in the way that they do it, right? If they really need to lose 30 pounds, they're going to say they need to lose 15 because they believe they're going to be able to knock out 15 and feel good about it. But again, we almost fall to our lowest common denominator. So if you set it at 30 or you set it at 35, you're probably going to default well above than if you protect yourself and set it at 15 to begin with. Okay. So that's just my little bit on goal setting, but most people only ever set the positive, right? The hope and the desire side. That's not how we're wired as people. We are wired to want to lean in on the hope and desire side, but we are also wired to avoid the things that we don't want to have in our lives. We don't always take those actions. And so I want us to acknowledge the suffering. I'll give an example. I have a 38-year-old client. Okay. He literally, before the time he was 18, moved 26 times. Lived with his mom, his dad, his grandma, his aunt. Never had the same set of friends twice. Never had the same set of, never lived in the same place twice. Never had the same set of friends twice. Okay. You can imagine there's a whole lot that went deep into that. Okay. But fast forward to today, he's got a wife and 2 beautiful daughters. The idea of suffering is a life without the 3 of them. But what he realizes in this moment is that if he stays on the same path, stays on the same pattern, that suffering is almost guaranteed because he will not be the man, husband, and father that he knows he's capable of and who he really is at the core. He's got this vision, right, that he sets out with his wife and him sitting on this their ranch in Texas with the wind blowing through the brush when they're 80 years old. And the only thing breaking the silence is the laughter of his kids and his grandkids. I get chills every time I say that because what that says is that in that moment, he recognizes a life without them is guaranteed suffering. The path to getting there, to secure them in his life is going to be a very painful journey. But the purpose now has become big enough to overtake the pains required for him to embrace the shame, the pain, and the trauma of him never having learned how to give or receive love, and him putting himself in a position of vulnerability and authenticity so that he can recognize he no longer has to be the nomad that escapes the world anytime something gets tough. So what he's now able to do is to be able to sit in there, not only with the vision of what this looks like, but absolute clarity on what suffering would exist so that every time he starts to falter, it's not feeling further and further away from the hope. It's feeling closer and closer to the suffering. We need the bookends to be able to keep us in line, because again, like we talked about before, it's not about the polarization and politicization. It's not about the black or white. The gift is in the gray area. So if we're going to effectively move ourselves as people, we need to also understand what we're avoiding, and we need to change the way that we view and envision into the world. The second step to this, though, Spencer, is we have to start to identify the pains that we tend to avoid and learn to embrace them. I'll use a personal example on this one. Okay. We didn't talk about my personal story. I'll hit it really, really high level just for the sake of this point. But when I was 7, I was run over by a truck. My left arm was severed from my body, was reattached. I had 24 surgeries over the years of recovery. I don't have a lat on the left side of my back. I don't have a tricep in my left arm, and my bicep is my gracilis from my leg. Okay. Reality of it is that about 15 to 20 years ago, my physical pain started to develop into suffering already. It was debilitating in the sense that it was impacting my quality of life. It was preventing me from living the way I wanted, doing the things I wanted. And so I, at that moment, learned that if I stayed lean, I ate the right foods, I stayed like, my core strength was strong, that I could mitigate that suffering to a daily manageable pain. So what did I do? I went and I joined a gym, because that's what everybody says they're going to do when they get healthy. Okay. And so I did. I went and I joined a gym, and I went consistently for 30 days, brother. I crushed it. Right. And then I stopped going. Okay. Now, if I was focusing on the strategy and tactics of the world, or if I hadn't gone to the effort of understanding with absolute clarity the suffering I wish to avoid, I might have stopped there. But I didn't. I had to ask myself an additional question, right? I had to ask myself, is it the pain of working out, the pain of lifting weights, the pain of stretching, the pain of plyometrics that I'm avoiding? Or is it the anxiety I get in a crowded gym? The reality of it was definitively the second. So it gave me the clarity and awareness to be intentional, to know that I could embrace the pains at that time, to create the time, energy, and space to build out my own home gym so I could have the environment for me to be successful, right? Those were the changes that were required. Those were the pains I had to embrace to guarantee I would avoid suffering. But had I not done that piece, or if I'd focused on strategy and tactics, this is what I would have done. Well, I'm going to go join Orange Theory because that gym must not have been a good one. Well, I'm going to hire a personal trainer because that might have been good. Well, maybe I need to go start riding my bike. I would have just kept jumping and not had anything that was sustainable, because I really wasn't getting to the root of the fucking problem. I was just focusing on the strategy and tactics. And so when I realized it wasn't that was keeping me stuck, it was a combination of my emotional triggers, behavioral patterns, and environmental conditioning. And I went to the level of understanding the suffering I wish to avoid. I was now empowered to make the decision that was actually going to guarantee I avoided suffering, and also got to gain freedom through it.
You stopped just trying to fix and adjust the symptoms, right? You went to the cause. You went to the root of it and went for, no, this is really the reason why I need to do this. So instead of jumping around, or like your client, I need to work on this suffering. I need to face this to change it. And you're right. For goals, so many of us focus, myself included, I focus on the positives. Oh, what I want to do, what I want to go, instead of what do I need to face this year to change my suffering, to change my trajectory, to make sure I'm on that path where I want to be. And now, you're hearing this, it's already 2022. We're recording this right before the New Year's. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, for this new year, I need to look and see some of those goals that I have and tweak them or add different ones of going, let's get in that gray area. Let's not just be all one-sided here. Let's go see that other side. Yeah. And again, I'm going to tie, I won't say again, but tying it back to the beginning, it all comes into knowing who you are.
That's right.
And knowing like, okay, like your client, I know who I am because this is where I see myself. And, we're on a farm and there's no sounds, right? It's just like my kids and grandkids breaking that silence. That's where I see myself. I know who I am. Now I see the things, I'm aware of the things that are in the way of that are clouding up that vision. And that's what I need to address. And it might be pain, most likely will be pain, to deal with it and to be able to accept it and work through it, take that action. But then we can have that dream, or we're getting closer to knowing exactly who we are, because I got the target. I know where I'm going.
And it fits perfectly into what you even outlined in the 3 A's, right? Awareness, acceptance, and then action. Because the reality of it is that it is through our actions that we demonstrate who we are to the world.
100%, right?
And so we've got to first start with understanding who we are so that we can align those actions to make sure that the world also receives us based on who we're projecting through our actions.
Dude, this conversation has been blowing my mind. Like every couple sentences, I'm like, I don't even know what to say to this. Like, I just let him keep going because this is so amazing. but I feel like we should wrap it up here, because I'm sure all the Energizers minds are going, I don't know what to start with here, all these different things. Like, got so many things running through my head. So we want to find us. We want to discover who we truly are. What is your go-to strategy to know who we are, to discover us?
So again, I'm going to say that there's not a singular strategy on this one, because it is typically a long process. And so I start with this to say it's not as long for some people as it is for others. It's not about the comparison. It's only about the journey for you. One of the tips and techniques that I gave very tactically early is a great place to start. But I would say that, to your point, awareness is always where we have to start. And so what are other ways that we can create awareness to point us towards who we are, in addition to what we already outlined? I am a big believer, right, in journaling in general and in free form journaling to be able to allow people to do this. But I'm also a really, really big believer in recognizing that our external world, again, can project who we are onto us if we open ourselves to receive it, or who they perceive us to be onto us, rather. Okay. So I am a big believer in seeking awareness. What we know is that our minds process 11 million bits of information per second, but we're only consciously aware of about 40. So what that suggests is that we're largely led by the unconscious. So until we go through a systematic process of moving the unconscious to the conscious, the unaware to the aware, it's going to feel like we're victims. It's going to feel like we're vague. It's going to feel like we have no influence or control over our destinies, right? That's why so many of us feel stuck. But we can get a lot of feedback. And so I would suggest that if we know that vulnerability and authenticity are the glue that binds human connection, lean into both of those as it relates to those people close in your world. So whether it's a spouse, a parent, a kid, a mentor, you name it, okay? Asking questions on how they see you. How would they describe who you are? And then getting very specific and tactical questions around, hey, if there was one thing in my world that you think I'm blind to that's consistently causing damage or keeping me from becoming who I want, what would that be? If there was something that I do either to you, around you, or you witness in my world that you'd like to remove from me and plug it into your world, what would that be? Ask targeted questions and be willing to accept the answer, no matter how painful it might be to receive. If you're willing to put yourself in that place, you will get a very clear mirror from the 5 to 7 people closest to you on how you're demonstrating who you are to the world. And from there, you can start to pair your intellectual and your emotional narratives on who you are together. You may feel that who you are is not in alignment with what they tell you they receive from you, which tells me that your intellectual narrative is driving who you are to the world based on the shoulds, the shaming, and the whats that you've been conditioned to train, versus following your emotional narrative on who you are, which is how you're going to engage, connect, and interact with those individuals. Use awareness as a place to start. So journaling, meditation, and asking good questions. But this leads us down that path around how many people are just waiting for someone to come save them, for someone to be their hero. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but nobody's coming. The only person who can save you, the only person who can be your hero is you. And so what I would suggest instead, and it's down this path of awareness, is don't look for a hero, don't look for a savior, look for a guide. And when I say a guide, that's not like a subtle embedded push to say hire a coach, because 98% of people aren't ready for a coach anyway. Okay. So to me, it's truly find a guide, a kid, a parent, a friend, a spouse, a whatever, to help them help you see yourself more clearly. And even for those of us that have a high level of awareness, we still have blind spots. I will tell you that there are times that my wife has given me a push or given me a dose of truth to make sure that I see myself the way she sees me, which is actually a more accurate representation in some situations of who I am, because my own fear, shame, or other things has prevented myself from being seen to the world. We got to shine that bright light.
Right. And you have to be willing to. And I'll tell you, even you just saying that, and I've done some of that, and I'll be perfectly honest, I need to do more of that and be better about it for myself, to be totally transparent. But it scares the living daylights out of me, right? To think about that being like, oh my God, are they going to say what I want them to say, or what I hope they're going to say, or what they see about me? but realizing that no matter what they say, it's going to be okay. It's going to be fine. It is what it is. It's bringing that awareness and that acceptance then of going, okay, thank you, and being willing to receive it without judgment, without any hatred or anything like that.
Objective and non-judgmental is exactly right.
Right? Because then you can actually take the action to change it, do the things you want to do, and realize, oh, this is a good part of me. I like this. We are going to keep that. We're going to foster that. Oh, we want to change this, and here's what we need to do. And that's
where a lot of people go wrong with self-awareness, by the way, as well, is they just become more aware of all the ways they should be judging themselves. And so what you just said is very critical. Objective and non-judgmental is absolutely crucial. And to your point, you even made a comment like you're going to be okay, right? So Dr. Susan Jeffers has a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. She outlines 3 levels of fear. It's internal fears, those things that, or those external fears, those things that happen to you, the things that you can't control. Internal fears, which are like emotions, the way that we process the different things. And then what she calls level 3 fears, which are the root of all fears. And it's the question, can I handle it? And the reality of it is, if we knew that we could handle anything, we knew we would be okay, we knew we could move through it, what would we actually have to fear?
Man, that would be very few and far between, if nothing, right? Because we knew we could handle it.
So realize that if you're sitting here listening to this in 2022, it means that you are a survivor, which means that you will be okay no matter what, because whatever's been thrown at you up until this point in your life, even though it's hurt, even though it's knocked you down, you're still here. You're still investing in yourself. So remind yourself of the fact of all of the things you've already handled and use that as fuel to empower you on all the things that you will continue to be able to handle moving forward.
Holy crap. I mean, seriously, I so true, right? And I resonate. I repeat everything Brian said to all of you. You are going to make it. You are going to be okay. And know that we are here for you. I'm here for you. Our Energizer family's here. Brian's here to lift you up, support you. So know that you are amazing. You are enough. You are worthy just the way you are. And it's going to be okay. We got you. Brian, this life-changing, freaking life-changing time together. I cannot thank you enough for sharing your wisdom with me and with all of us. Thank you so, so much. How can people connect with you more? I mean, if they're ready for a coach, or just to even be surrounded by you, let's be honest, just be surrounded by you and your energy changes the world in such a positive way, changes my life. And you have since I've met you. How can people connect with you, follow you, all that good stuff?
Yeah. So I'll start knowing that sometimes we give too many options and people will do it. So I want to give something to you and your audience because we're on a mission to impact 1 billion lives. I didn't say that earlier, but to do that, we know that 99.9999999999999%, I might have missed a 0.9, will never pay us $1, and we are very okay with that. So we produce a lot of free content to be able to elevate and empower people, and we're really proud. After 18 months of very intentional process, we've actually opened up all the introductory pieces all the way through the first chapter of one of our online courses called No Limits You for free. And so if you go to nolimitsprelude.com, it'll give you access to over 30 minutes of video content where we unpack some of these concepts that we believe in. We start getting to in beginning phase and start helping you envision the future on who you want to become and who you want to impact. And so whether or not you move beyond chapter 1, you guaranteed will get value out of this. And so whether or not you know exactly who you are, you have no idea where to begin, or you're somewhere in between, this will add value into your lives. So go to nolimitsprelude.com. If you want to just engage with us generally, I'm at Bogert Brian on almost every single platform. You can always find me. If you Google my name, you'll find me, brianbogert.com. And then if you want a little bit of an entry point into our other entities and different ways that we are helping people, again, demonstrate who they are to the world, attract who they want to impact into their world through a variety of different ways, go to iamnolimits.com, and you'll get a good sense for some of the ways that we're helping people do this.
Definitely take them up on that offer. I mean, such a generous offer. So thank you so much, brother, for sharing that and for allowing Energizers and everyone to go through that first chapter and really get the value and learn and grow and open their awareness. Folks, jump in, do that. I can't wait to jump in there and learn from him even more and follow him, right? Connect with him, because just surround yourself with the people, right? The people you want to be around that energize you, right? Put him on your list. He's going to energize you. He's on that list already. You just might not have his name written down there yet, but he's there ready to energize you. So Brian, truly, you are an amazing man. You are a visionary, and I'm so grateful to have you here joining us and to call you my friend. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for being the Prince of Positivity. Thank you for building a community and a platform to allow me the opportunity to pour good into your world and the world in general. It wouldn't be without you. Again, I wouldn't be here without you. And so I'm deeply grateful. I'm also grateful to call you a friend. And I know that the collective impact we're going to have together is going to be significant in this world. And that's one thing I'll say. 1 billion people by 2045. I say by 2045. There's no limit on the number that we're going to impact, but 1 billion people. It's not going to happen alone. It's going to happen with collective impact. And so that's all I'm asking is if anybody engages, if anybody does anything, if anybody listens to this episode and gets any value, right? If this moved you in any way, what I know is that moved people move people. So all I'm asking is if you can just perpetuate the movement by commenting, and sharing. And I want to be really clear. I don't care about the vanity metrics on any of my stuff. And I don't even care about the vanity metrics for Spencer's stuff. I just don't. But what I absolutely care about is impact. And so I don't care if you listen to this and you literally take your AirPods out and you put them in someone else's ear. I don't care if you see a piece of content and you just turn your phone and show it to somebody. I don't care about the metrics. I care about the message creating impact. So please help us move more people.
Yes. Move people, move people. I don't know what to say. I'm done with words. I can't talk anymore because that was incredible. Wow. Move people, share this with someone, any way, shape, or form, right? The vanity metrics are vanity. We don't need it, but move people, help people out, move yourself if this has helped you. So with that, thank you for being here. Thank you for being an energizer, and make sure you join us for another episode to keep getting impacted and hopefully energizing you in your day and life. Thank you, energizers. We'll catch you later.